Wolf Pack, what's going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves here with your preseason week 2 updates, your Monday market check, getting all these rankings so that you can get the latest, greatest fantasy football advice in the game. You can, of course, find all our content at rotostreetjournal.com. If you enjoy what you hear today, me and the world of you would consider giving it the thumbs up button, hitting that subscribe, and going live with us at any point. But why don't we waste no time, because we have a ton to cover here. So again, you can get out to more people by hitting that thumbs up button for us, getting those likes, those shares, retweets in there. We so appreciate it. But let's get on into the rankings and talk about who has been updated, who has risen and fallen. Again, I give this preface before we get started every single time that you don't want to overreact to that preseason news, because it is the preseason after all, but you still want to be fully informed of everything. There's still great chances to see how these rookies look, how the new schemes are developing, and how just new players are fitting into their new roles on new teams. So I think I get the whole logic, like don't overreact, put that sticker on your computer and continue to look at it. But I also don't understand, if there's more data available to us to make the best decisions on draft day, we want to follow those. And let's talk about the data that I consider the most important for this week. Let's starting with Zach Wilson at quarterback. We'll go position by position, but damn, this kid has been so impressive so far. I think maybe the most impressive of all these rookie quarterbacks, and it just continued, even got better on Sunday. The guy goes 9 for 11, hurling up 2 touchdowns in addition to racking up those yards. We got, there we go. 128 yards, 154.7 passer rating through his 4 series. He's now led 3 scoring drives in 4 of action. And more so just looks like he truly belongs, right? The ball is just zipping off his hand. He's moving around in the pocket and still able to keep the velocity on his throws. Everything is looking great for Zach Wilson so far. Never mind that the defense continues to get decimated with injuries, meaning they're going to suck. Again, it's the Jets. They already sucked, but imagine what they're going to look like now. Call me crazy. I mean, I love Trevor Lawrence as a player. I think Zach Wilson could be right up there, if not push him for these rookie stat numbers. Of course, as you can see here, I have the other guys, Lance and Fields, above him. But I'm going to bump Wilson up a big 5 spots here so far. A couple other guys are going to be joining him in the upgrade raise as well. But he's got, again, that cannon arm, pretty good weaponry, a horrible defense, so he's going to need to chuck. I love what I'm seeing from this kid. I think he is going to be a fantasy stud this year at the price you're going to get him at in those last rounds. So I'm bumping him right towards my top 20 quarterbacks. But another QB that I have to bump up, and that's Big Ben. Absolutely slinging, showing more arm strength, I think, this Sunday than we saw all last year from Big Ben. Going 8 of 10, slinging for over 137 yards, 2 scores. I mean, he just roasted them, absolutely torching them in just a quarter of action. And yeah, Detroit sucks. We get that. It's probably their second stringers for the most part. But still, the fact that he was hurling these deep shots, that 43-yarder to Deontay Johnson, this was much, much better than the Big Ben we saw Dinkin and Duncan all over that field last year. And all these people worried about his arm strength. Is it going to be gone? Can he support all these weapons? And again, this guy led the NFL in pass attempts last year. Certainly would be a mistake to not at least factor in the fact that he was slinging it on Friday, Saturday, whatever day they played. But great performance from Big Ben. Has to have you feeling great about his weapons as well. In addition to Najee Harris, we'll talk about a little bit later. Loved what I saw from Big Ben, rising right into that top 20 quarterbacks as well. Such a safe option. Both of these guys, I should say, too. Zach Wilson, Big Ben. If you go for these guys I have up here, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and they're not going to be starting for who God knows who knows. It could be a half season for some of them. I think it's going to be sooner than later, especially for Fields, as we're talking about in a second. But these guys are perfect bridges. Zach Wilson, no competition. Big Ben, looking great so far. So at least for the early season until his arm falls off, these guys could be great. Let's bring in now Trey Lance. Little bit of upside, little bit of downside. on what we saw this week. He goes 8 for 14, 102 with 2 touchdowns plus that interception. What we haven't really seen at all, and this is probably by design by Kyle Shanahan, not trying to show off too much, is the leg points. I mean, that's why I have him here at 13, because he could legitimately run for 1,000 yards this year after doing it in college, 1,108 TDs that season. We're seeing him kind of stare down open receivers. We're seeing some bad tendencies that you don't want to see. And for that reason, it's increasing the chance that we might see Jimmy Garoppolo last a little bit longer, in which case I do have to bump Lance down just a little bit. I can't take him above a Joe Burrow, who could lead the league in pass attempts with this trio of great weapons, we think. We'll talk about Chase in a little bit. Meanwhile, Fields looking like he's more in line to start. But I'm like, I just know in my gut, like, this is the guy. This is the Mahomes of this year. He had an 88.9% adjusted completion percentage, well, with the starters when you account for drops and those things. So overall, I really like what I saw from Trey Lance, especially down the stretch. He looked like he really picked it up. Still think he has league-winning upside for sure. I just a little nervous that his leash, Jimmy Garoppolo might have a little more leash here. But granted, Kyle Shanahan did say after the game he hasn't changed, doesn't know for sure who his guy is yet, that this preseason action hasn't really done much to persuade him from going away from Jimmy Garoppolo, but still also not being like, yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo's clearly won this either. He's still leaving it in open competition, which I think is important to consider as well. Moving on, just kind of an update. I'm not going to really bump these guys up in the rankings quite yet, between like Drew Lock, but also now Teddy Bridgewater. So I will bump Drew Lock down a little bit because we don't know if he's going to be the starter anymore. It looks like Teddy Bridgewater is starting to pull away in this quarterback battle. So on Saturday, we had Teddy Bridgewater start, go 9 of 11, 105 and a TD. He's now led 2 touchdown drives on his 23 snaps. They scored on all of his drives, whether it's a field goal or something else of that nature. So far, he's just looked so in command of this offense. 16 and 19 throws, 179 yards, 2 scores, 0 picks, all of them ending in points again on his 4 drives. Meanwhile, we saw Drew Lock, 9 of 14, 80 yards. Not bad. Again, building off of last week, two touchdowns, 150 yards, slinging it. Just didn't look like he had it, whereas Bridgewater was in complete command this entire time. Lock also partly to blame for 2 recovered fumbles as well. Looking like it could be Teddy Bridgewater time, which will, of course, be big for guys like, Jerry Jeudy, timing routes, all that good stuff. Very important for him, for Sutton, that accuracy, all that good stuff there. So that's what I got for quarterbacks. I believe that is the last update for quarterbacks. Let me just pull up my banners. I see my legends in the comments. We did have a few more, actually, that I need to make sure I get to. Pat's quarterback updates both look great, but Cam's now going to be away from the team for 5 days due to a COVID-related scare. It probably means he's unvaccinated because otherwise I think he could stay around the team. So just stirs in a little risk with him. You don't expect him to just kind of say, oh, no, Mac's here, he gets the job. But the fact that Mac has looked as good as he has looked, this can't really help him. Cam did go 8 of 9, 103 and a touchdown against the Eagles, but then Mac goes 13 or 19, nice and accurate. Should have had a touchdown, went right off to kill Harry. So there is some upside for either of these guys if they can take over. Particularly Cam is the Russian guy, but now you got to figure out, what do you make of this absence? Is this going to hurt his chance to be starting the season? Is this lessen the leash he has? So just giving you the update there. I do think Cam Newton, as long as he's starting, belongs above him. Now, we know Taysom Hill is getting a little bit closer in the competition to Jameis. So this whole tier, there's going to be guys that will leap right into this tier once we know they're the starters. But this is kind of just like the ugly competition or backup role tier. And that's kind of where these guys all belong at this point. And last but not least, last couple notes here, Deshaun Watson. Could he be eligible all of 2021? That's the latest report right now, according to Charles Robinson of Yahoo. He tweeted out, let me get the direct quote here. He may, the fact that this criminal case is going against him may ensure he's eligible to play for the entire 2021 season. That would seem counterintuitive, but the fact that he has not been placed on the commissioner's exempt list suggests that something might not be happening. And as long as They don't move him on there. He's going to be eligible to play. We don't know if he will play, though, for the Texans. Are they going to move him ahead of time? If they don't, would they even start him? So there's tons of question marks here. I only bring this up because in last round best balls, he's still falling to pretty much all of them. Should he end up playing a full season, whether with Houston, whether somewhere else, you're looking at a guy that would have ranked up here at maybe 5, 6. So I think you have to keep this in mind that you might have Deshaun Watson throughout your season. So keep that for sure in mind. And the Bears QB's Andy Dalton, just absolutely disgusting. His final stats don't look that horrible. 11-17, 146, 1 TD, 1 interception. Half of those yards came on one 73-yard touchdown to Rodney Adams. He did all the work, kind of mossed a guy, and then took the rest to the house. He had an interception that wasn't necessarily his fault. His receiver fell down, but still just so conservative. Tons of 3 and outs. I think in like 5 drives, none of them ended up in points in his first 5. It just took that last final touchdown being broken to have Andy Dalton actually put up some points. Meanwhile, Justin Fields shows off a bit of his upside. Now, 9 of 19 passing, clearly not good. He's under pressure all day. His receivers were dropping the ball, but he made some pretty poor throws as well. He was, though, dropping a couple really nice deep ones into the dime, one of the tight end, Jesse James. He also, more importantly, showed off that rushing upside. 4 carries, 46 yards, over 10 yards a pop. That's what we're looking for. Even in an unideal passing performance, the guy still put up like 6.5 points in a quarter of action. We saw the same thing with Trey Lance, a half of action, putting up 11 points without using his legs. So there's so much upside with these guys that I want to keep re-emphasizing. But bring those guys up. I'd say this kind of makes sense to move Justin Fields a little bit above Trey Lance just because I think he can get to the starting job a little bit sooner. So we will see there. But the biggest bump, of course, Zach Wilson, Big Ben. They might get moved up ahead of a couple of these. Again, I think I'm a little bit lower on Trevor Lawrence. They did cut Tebow, who will open up some of his goal line work. But let's see how he looks tonight before we make any decisions on that one. Last quarterback news, though. It's certainly not least, and it's not about anybody who played this weekend, but that's Dak Prescott. He's not fully back, and he may not be all season, according to the great Adam Schefter, friend of the show. Oh, boy. Last year he was on pace to lead the league, break records for yardage, for attempts, aerial show. But if he's not at full health, you've got to imagine they're going to protect him the best they can. I can't, in good conscience, take Dak over a lot of these guys right now that don't offer the same risk. I mean, he no longer is going to be attempting this many passes if he's not at 100%. Can't go 100% based on last year's stats. I think he belongs below like Ryan Tannehill. I mean, the guy's throwing to freaking Julio Jones and A.J. Brown and has no question marks. Dak's been getting mysterious shoulder MRIs. This report pops up. You got to imagine, even if he plays, they keep Zeke in and just pound and pound and pound and try to protect their franchise quarterback should he not be at 100%. And that's going to impact CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. We'll get to them a little bit. I'm nervous about Dak. Let me know if you think I'm nuts for bumping him down as low as I am. But I think Matthew Stafford could lead the league in pass attempts and passing yardage. So could Tom Brady. Ryan Tannehill might not have enough attempts to get there, but I do think with those two weapons could easily outscore Dak. This is a guy that had a couple good fantasy seasons in a row, but at less than 100, I am not feeling great about it. I dropped him from this tier down into this one. I do think this tier, we can keep, these guys down. We'll reorganize these tiers a little bit. Yeah, this seems about right, though. I think Darnold might be along the bottom tier there. But yeah, so that's your ranking updates for the quarterbacks. Let me know if you think I'm insane. Am I overreacting to this Dak news? I just know if I'm on the table, I'm not drafting him right now at his price. And I doubt he's going to fall into the Stafford, Tom Brady range. So I'm just probably not going to end up with him on any teams. But again, if you think I'm insane, let me know. Let's get on now to the running backs. Talk about running back risers and fallers after this weekend. We'll start with Myles Gaskin, the biggest faller of last week after Malcolm Brown started over him. Well, this week he gets the start, and he shows why. He plays 10 first-team snaps right from the start. It did become a timeshare, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's all roses. He saw 19 snaps compared to only 13 for Ahmed. So almost a near even split. And then we had Malcolm Brown working for 5 of those snaps with Tua. So the 3-headed nightmare we were promised did exist. The big difference is Gaskin got the start, and Gaskin showed why he should get the start every single time. So I'm not going to bump him. I had him at like 20, top 20 running back. Not going to go that high. But to get him back into this tier or so, near the James Robinsons, I can get behind that. He belongs in this tier of like somewhat sketchy but usable flex guys, in my opinion. One of the guys that does not belong in that tier any longer, though, that's Michael Carter, probably the biggest faller of this week. And he's crashing down right now. Plays behind Tevin Coleman. Plays behind Ty fucking Johnson. Plays behind LaMichael P. Ryan before entering the game. He shows a little burst, shows a little wiggle while he's in there. But the fact that he took so long to get into this game is really what the biggest concern is. 0 snaps with the first team. After all camp, it was like he's the one that's rotating in, and him and Coleman are the ones going to be doing it. No. Coleman sees 10 snaps, 9 for Ty Johnson with the first team offense, 0 for Michael Carter. It's not pretty right now. I'm not going to lie. He did see 10 carries, 52 yards, looked okay doing it, but he does not belong anywhere besides this, late committee range at this point. And it's 2 weeks in a row too. Tevin Coleman didn't play, and he played as the second string behind Ty Johnson a week ago. But Tevin Coleman returns, and he's now like the 4th string. I don't know. Something just must not be working in practice. Maybe they've gone back to making this rookie earn it. But in early drafts, I was all about this guy. It's going to kill a lot of my best ball teams. Tony Pollard range, A.J. Dillon, give me Thunder Thighs, who we know is going to be at least somewhat involved and would be an absolute monster if anything happens to Aaron Jones. I'm going to bump him right around here. Huge, huge fall from grace for Mr. Michael Carter this weekend. Not trusting him at all right now. And speaking of A.J. Dillon, he reminded us of his upside should anything actually happen to Aaron Jones. 4 carries, 28 yards, 5 yards after contact per carry. Hauls in 2 of his targets, all 2 of them, for 12 yards. It was more so just watching this man truck people. He's good. He is really, really good. I think the Packers are just really, really good at identifying strong running backs for these zone schemes, just in general. Look at what they've been doing these last few years. Aaron Jones, you saw Kylan Hill. They've got a great value, kind of like what the Steelers had with wide receivers. I think the Packers have that with running backs. So I'm going to bump him up a little bit, so much more upside than Zach Moss, than Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards we'll get to. He might get bumped up ahead of him. But ultimately, not the most usable, I imagine, when Aaron Jones is healthy, but just such a big reminder of what he could do. If he's not, I do think there's going to be some touchdown equity there for A.J. Dillon, so he's not like he's a complete zero. If you draft him, he might be a plug-in flex on the right weeks where they will be pounding the clock out. So big fan of A.J. Dillon. Just reminded us again of how damn good he could be. Guy that in this top tier I'm a little bit nervous about, and this is kind of like a mixed bag, so I'd love to hear what you guys think. That's Damien Harris. Now, he looks great. The line looks great. He started first man up to the table, scores at the goal line, all positives. He should be a riser, to be honest, when you consider those things, except the line looks so good that every single running back looked great for New England. Sony worked in for first team work. James White continued to work in for the passing downs. So we saw 8 first team snaps for Damien Harris, 5 for James White, 4 for Sony Michel. Classic gross New England committee is back. Under 50% of the snaps, nobody topped more than 8. It's just gross. I love Damien Harris. I love this offense. I love this line. I think most weeks he's going to be a good bet to approach the end zone. But the other concern was Cam Newton also looked really good. And short looking good should be a better thing for the offense. But that hurts Harris when so much of the value could end up being tied to Cam Newton's goal line rushing. He was 3rd in rushing touchdowns last year among all players. So a lot of goal line volume that would be available to Damien Harris should Mac win, and won't be if he doesn't. So I'm going to bump him a little bit down below some of these guys here. And maybe I'll come to regret that because, again, I love the player. I love how he's looking. I love the line. I love the power-based attack. But Ramondre Stevenson showing out. Like, they could get him involved if Sony gets shipped out. Maybe just 1 week of fumbles for Harrison. Suddenly, you never know what the Pats are going to do. I thought it was becoming clear it would be Damien Harris and his show. I don't know that that's the case anymore. Another faller for me, you can see I've already kind of done those adjustments, is J.K. Dobbins. Getting close to being a big enough faller to jump down into this tier for a few different reasons. Let me pull up the banner, though, so we're on the right person. But he's outsnapped and outperformed by Gus Edwards. So far this preseason, Dobbins has 7 carries for 8 yards. I'm not freaking out about performances preseason. I get that. What's more concerning is Gus Edwards sees 10 to 8 snaps, even though we see Dobbins start. But even more concerning than that, being outsnapped, is that Gus Edwards was taking the third down snaps. Saw 3 to just 1 for Dobbins. All these reports, Dobbins is going to be the next big pass catcher. They're really bumping up his work. Yeah, you might not want to show all that off in preseason, but you might want to get the guy some pass protection reps. You might want to get him in there and get a feel for it at least a little bit. So it's looking like it's about to be a 60-ish, 40-ish split, which is, I think, what we were kind of expecting. Of course, more so 50, 45, 35, 20 for Lamar type of split is really what you're looking at. Even more so than that. So it's just like it's a ground pie that is going to be so voluminous, but also be distributed to so many people. It doesn't seem like there's going to be much rhyme or reason to it. Part of me almost wants to bump Dobbins like below Darrell Henderson. I'm not, because I love the player. I love how good he looked. 6 touchdowns in 5 weeks last year. I mean, guy's a player, but he's going to fall overall behind a lot of receivers on the overall big board there. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about this preseason for Mr. J.K. Dobbins. So Zach Moss is also going to drop. Everybody early on, he's the running back, clear-cut guy. Well, Devin Singletary has something to say about that. So that's going to make Singletary a big riser and Moss a big faller. So far this preseason, Devin Singletary has 12 touches, 2 of them being receptions, 74 yards from scrimmage, and 2 touchdowns. He saw 18 of 20 first-team snaps ahead of Moss this last week when Moss was actually active. He's now seen 66% of all the first-team snaps over these first few weeks, and he's looked better than Moss while doing it. You could listen to the announcers talking about how motivated Singletary was, hitting the weight room, and it shows. He's zipping around the field, showing some good burst, showing some good power on that touchdown one especially. So I am bumping up Singletary, I'd say, to here, and I'm going to drop Zach Moss below him. I'm going to bump Kenyon Drake up because I just think he's going to catch a ton of balls. But yeah, 38 for Singletary, up 4 spots, down 4 spots, a couple more for Zach Moss, in my opinion. Fluid situation, could flip. Not like a backfield I'm dying to get involved with anyways. But if I am going to get involved, the fact that Zach Moss goes like 2 to 3 rounds above Singletary, to me, that should be flipped. So I'll buy in on Singletary at the right price for sure. Looking like the best back, playing ahead of everybody else, not giving anybody a reason to take over there. Houston running backs, even messier than we expected with Ingram back. I've been talking about this all year. Like, what is the point of drafting a fucking Houston running back? David Johnson was going around like 7 or 8. I don't own him anywhere. I never would. Had no interest in taking him there. I've been minus 30 on ECR on him all year. He's looking like the last of the 3. So Ingram, I think Lindsey got the starting nod, but Ingram was the one that got the treatment. 7 carries, 24 yards, the touchdown at the stripe, plays 6 snaps with the starters compared to 4 for Phillip Lindsay, compared to just 3 for David Johnson, who didn't get a carry or a target while he was out there. It's just one of those gross, disgusting, 3-headed nightmares that I just don't see any reason to get involved in. So I'm going to bump down Phillip Lindsay. Like, it's hideous. I guess he was pretty low anyways, but still, just awful stuff. Going to bump up McKissick. I don't have a little banner on him. You know what? Not above those guys, though. I bumped him up last week. Still playing all the third down snaps there. Now, you saw, I don't have much room for Chase Edmonds to rise. I might kind of split up the 49ers backs this way. But he played all the third down work. Saw 7 of 9 first-team snaps with Kyler. James Conner got in for 1 third down in the second quarter. He did Chase Edmonds lose the goal line work. We kind of knew that was going to happen. He's only had 1 career carry inside the 5-yard line, but starting to get his real sense this guy could actually be a 3-down back that, yeah, Conner will rotate in for 1 series after Edmonds gets 2 to 3 of work. It's going to be a lot of time to rack up a lot of points for Chase Edmonds. So bumping him up just a couple spots as a clearer 3-down back than Harris, than maybe Mostert or Sermon here as well. Last couple notes here, the running back position until we move to wide receivers. Javonte Williams, I'm a little bit concerned. I know I bumped this guy up, but 2 straight weeks, Melvin Gordon misses, and he doesn't really act like the true feature back here. I'm not saying to overreact to this, but if you can't be a true every down back when your main starter is out in the preseason to give your team a chance to scout you and your abilities, I'm having a hard time envisioning him playing 60% of the snaps in the regular season if that's not going to happen right now when Royce Freeman is the only other active guy coming in for all the third downs, doing pretty good as a receiver, 5 receptions on 6 targets for 44 yards. It's a timeshare. Even with the main guy out, it would be a timeshare. I think that's kind of my issue. I've always thought of Pat Shurmur, this bell cow breeder. He always has been this bell cow breeder. It doesn't seem like he's subscribing to that philosophy, at least based on early preseason usage. I'm not overreacting. You can see I still have Javonte 24 above some great names here at the running back position. But if he doesn't have true 3-down upside, he's going to have a lot hard time being that potential stretch run league-winning running back I know he's capable of. The ability's still there. He should have had a touchdown, got bobbled towards the end. He looks the part. It passes the eye test, fits the blocking. The line is opening holes. The offense is exploding, 30 and 33 points so far. I think they lead the preseason in scoring. Who would have guessed the Broncos would be leading the league in scoring right now? And that's where we're at. So Javonte, I think, is just a little bit riskier. I've also been taking him above Kareem Hunt even after watching the preseason. I'm going to bump Hunt down into this lesser tier. And maybe it does make sense to move Dobbins down here with these guys. I think that might be more so where he belongs. He's got the talent to be up here, but the opportunity. Mark Ingram's 28 targets was the most running back I ever saw, and now Gus Edwards coming out on third downs. I don't like that at all. And I believe that ties a bow other than the Rams backup battle. Now, Xavier Jones has been my guy. Get this guy as your late-round running back. Could be a steal if anything happens to Henderson. Thought he was the clear-cut next man up. Camp report suggests that is the case. Jordan Rodriguez, great beat writer for The Athletic, has been saying he's the player to watch. It could end up being a sizable role for him with or without Henderson there. But Jake Funk won this battle, part 2, so far. So no, I shouldn't say the training camp battle. That's still well on. Xavier Jones looked much more like the guy in week 1, but Jake Funk gets the start, gets 18 of 37 first-team snaps, so over half of them. He's the one going undrafted right now in leagues, yet he performed significantly better. He had 7 carries for 56 yards, 2 explosive runs within there, compared to 7 for 29. Not a bad per clip for Xavier, above 4. A reception for 10 yards. Xavier was in on all the third downs, so that's good to know. That's his role. If something happens to Henderson, he'll get all those third. But which one's going to be the first man up? It's getting tougher to see, and that's why I have to bump Xavier Jones down a little bit. I also have to bump down Justin Jackson while we're here, who is shaping up to be the clear-cut number 2 back there with the LA Chargers. Now has a groin injury that's probably going to keep him out of the entire preseason. You really think they're going to hand this job to somebody that sits out the whole preseason? Doesn't do much. Josh Kelly looked okay. Not great, but it looked okay in the preseason action. Larry Roundtree came off the bench after him, but still looks the part. I'm getting nervous about Justin Jackson being a complete burnt dummy pick. So I'm not in that. David Johnson, definitely useless. Whoever thought I'd be bumping David Johnson below Ty Johnson. Here we are, folks, seeing that first team work. I mean, this guy has Raheem Mostert type of running ability, Ty Johnson. I'm really into him. Malcolm Brown, just a fucking plug of shit. And I do need to bump up Jake Funk again as the potential guy. Him and Jones, just as you see, Jones dropping 8, Funk rising 8, much more closer in this competition than it might have originally looked, at least by my opinion. Probably the most important story, though, of the weekend as we get to wide receiver. Let me load these up. Swore I'd never go back. Swore that this guy could go a lot of horrible things. I should not repeat on air. My hatred for Corey Davis is very, very deep-seated. I reached for him in so many leagues a couple seasons ago. He was the next big guy. I was ready for him to go bananas. Sucks. Horrible player. But worse than that, I drop him, and then he goes on to destroy me and blow me up. My opponent picked him up. He beat my Patriots. Awful stuff. That type of player, right? So I told myself, never again out on Corey Davis. And then the preseason comes around, and I'm falling in love, and I hate it. I hate it. But here we go. Corey Davis catches 4 of 6 targets for 70 yards in the preseason game. He has now run 13 routes, and he's been targeted on 10 of them. This is in under a half of action. I mean, he's on pace right now for like 200 yards just about. I thought it was going to be Elijah Moore. In fact, I'm not convinced it wouldn't have been Elijah Moore if he had been healthy this whole time. But in his absence, Corey Davis has really started to step up. The scheme is looking great. Ted Wynn, you tweeted about it, how it's just like the 49ers. LaFleur's doing a great job creating space for his wide receivers. Opened at will, it seemed, for Corey Davis. Plenty of yak opportunities. He's shooting up, folks. Let's find out how far. I mean, Corey Davis above everyone in this tier, above Elijah Moore at this point, who has to come down. Like it's natural at this point. Below like maybe Marquez, my boy Marquez. Dang, target hog Corey Davis. I think, honestly, I mean, call me crazy. I have a feeling he's just going to rack up target after target after target. He looked really good. And just Wilson looked good. And as we said at the beginning, they're going to need a Chuck because of how bad and injury ravaged this defense is quickly becoming. So, yeah, I'll have Corey Davis now teetering with that top 36 receiver status. Honestly, could really just jump right up into here as that true number 1 for a live arm on a team that's going to need to Chuck. Corey Davis is by far the biggest winner of this last weekend. Jaylen Waddle, though, not too far behind, as you see here. I already gave him the bump up. He showed he could shoulder the wide receiver 1 duties, though. Sees 4 targets, hauls in 3 of them for 21 yards. Nothing crazy. But again, moving all over the place. Facing number 1 coverage because everyone else was out. And he was able to step up and be a guy for Tua. That Tua loved his tight ends. He still does. But I really just think Jaylen Waddle's bringing a lot to this offense. He did take a hard hit. His leg kind of whipped, and he came off the field and looked like it might be an issue. Fortunately, he was not injured. He was able to come back in. But something just to kind of keep in mind as well, that there is an injury history here, and it's not great. But he does look good. He looks explosive. They're moving him all over the place. He's kind of quickly rising up my ranks as somebody I'm trying to target, but not at Darnell Mooney. I'm going to adjust that very quickly. The next guy on the list, so these Cowboys wide receivers, we talked about Dak. At first, we should note that Cooper played. That's huge. Stepped on the field. He hasn't really been practicing much. So the fact that the team has been very conservative with their players, was willing to put him out there for the entirety of their first team drives, was important. 13 snaps in the debut. Wasn't targeted. He did have a negative 4-yard rush, but it was just a good sign that he's healthy and conditioned enough to be in there. Meanwhile, CeeDee Lamb on the positives, before we get to the Dak downgrade, right? Plays after last year. He didn't play at all in 12 personnel. 6 of 79 snaps in that formation. This year, he's played 75% of the snaps. There's been a lot of talk about that. That's what we talked with RJHO about. They're not going to remove their best player from the field. And it's just great to see that play out. Before he was kind of strictly pigeonholed into that slot. That's where he was moved into a lot this week too. But it's not the only spot he can play. Again, 12 personnel, he's on the outside. It wasn't like him getting subbed out for Michael Gallup. That's huge because more playing time is more chances to rack up points. This all being said, Dak might be at less than 100% all year. That does not feel good. Now, I already kind of bumped CD down. I had him right here at like 10, bumped him down 1. Maybe below Mike Evans and Robert Woods. I don't think so, though. Cooper as well, though. It's scary. It's scary to think what this offense would be without Dak. We've seen it, and it's hideous. But how prolific it could be. They're going to probably be a little bit more conservative either way at their pass attempts. But those two guys are just so talented, they don't need to be showered like they were last year to succeed. So just a small bump down for both of them. Probably a little bit more of a hit on the overall big board below some running backs I really like. But we will check in about that. I don't think I would take Mike Evans over CeeDee Lamb if push came to shove, so I'm not going to rank him like that. But I did want to mention those guys have to be at least reconsidered a little bit. Just want to reemphasize as well the Donovan Peoples-Jones hype train. He only had 1 catch, like 13 yards, but he's getting open at will. So let me find him here. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 81. I like him more than a lot of these guys right now. He's locked in according to Action Jackson, the athletic over there. Locked Donovan Peoples-Jones into like a starting role. Paris Campbell's only playing, 3 receiver sets. He's not really out there. Do like Byron Pringle more than him. Amon St. Brown is not playing 2 receiver sets at all. I'll bump him down, just kind of off my radar at this point. KJ Hamler just continues to score touchdowns, so we'll give him a little bit of a bump up. But Peoples-Jones, the hype train, continues to plow forward. This is the guy that didn't see a ton of time as a rookie, but did average, 17 ADOT? I mean, insanely useful deep threat. It still caught like most of the balls when he went 304 to as a rookie 14. I think that was on like 20 targets. So if he gets a bump up, so hyper efficient. So those 20 targets become 50 targets. 605 is totally possible. And as a best ball late round flyer, incredible. Plus we know OBJ is his injury concerns. What if the team just decided to move him after last year at the trade deadline? All potential options for right now. So I'm gonna bump down like a couple of these guys I wouldn't take above Donovan. And I'm bumping down Josh Palmer, but really he's like a riser. This is going to become a tier of like the sleepers I really like. Devin Funchess will no longer be in there because he's gotten hurt and it just sucks. But Josh Palmer, now 7 targets, 7 receptions, 39 yards, and a TD through about 2 quarters of action in his preseason. And I just keep reading about this kid and how he's just hungry to keep getting better. Just wants to. I like Gabriel Davis. I'm going to bump him back up. But he's just constantly working with Herbert after practice, this Josh Palmer kid. He is almost going to miss the bus back to camp, right? Because he's just staying so late with him. Every day he's asking his coaches questions. Then he's asking Herbert questions. Then he's asking the receivers questions. He's one of those kids that just respects the grind, likes the grind, is working his ass off throughout practices. And he's the number 3. He's clearly, they're saying he's really separating now to be that clear-cut number 3 guy. And offense behind, Keenan Allen hasn't dealt with too many injuries the last couple seasons, but missed time in each of them. Mike Williams always misses time. This is an offense I think throws for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns right around there. There's plenty of room for 3 mouths. We saw Tyron Johnson be a top 15 receiver down the stretch last year with other guys out in him. And that could be Palmer this year. He has all the makings of this. Again, this hard-ass worker, hard, tough self-love, building that rapport, getting that trust down. I think he could really surprise as a rookie receiver this year. Rookie receiver who's getting headlines for the wrong reasons these days, that's Jamar Chase. Now, let's talk. How worried should we be about these drops, about Jamar Chase right now? The guy hasn't played football in 2 years. I don't want to overreact to it. The last time he was on the field, he was better than Justin Jefferson, who set the rookie receiving record like that. That's an impressive feat. But the fact is, he had multiple drops in the game. 3 targets, 3 drops. 2 of them were deemed catchable. The next day in practice, 2 drops to the point that Auden Tate, beat writers are speculating, could start seeing time in 3 receiver sets ahead of Jamar Chase, so Chase has some time to get comfortable. mean, that's just, I get, again, need to shake off rust. But this is guy supposed to be the foolproof prospect, the elite of the elite. Again, better than Justin Jefferson when they shared a field together. And he can't even catch the ball right now. Boy, this wasn't a problem in college. 5 drops on 118 targets in 2019. So, like, I'm not, again, that concerned. And drops are like the least sticky of stats. But ahead of Deontay, Adam Thielen, DJ Moore, Odell Beckham, Claypool, who we already saw thrive, Judy. Like, I'm bumping him down. And T. Higgins, I'm not going to bump up, but certainly feels good right there at 20, even better. It's one of those things like, sure, I'm clearly not freaking out because I have him still within my top 30 wide receivers. He still has the talent to be up here, but when all said and done. But I'm starting to get a sick feeling in my stomach about it. Like, he doesn't seem all that, like, not that he needs to be remorseful. I don't know the exact word I'm looking for, but, like, he's very nonchalant about it all. Like, oh, yeah, I'll get it together, Yeah, man, yeah. I'd rather that than him freak out, but I also like to see him be like, yeah, this is not like me. I'm going to work at the jugs machine for the next 5 hours until I don't drop another single ball. He's not showing that type of, like, killer, the Josh Palmer mentality of practicing with his quarterback every day and for hours after practice, always trying to get better. They're just like, we're not seeing that out of Jamar Chase right now. So he gets a big bump down. Like, he's getting riskier and riskier by the week. Next preseason week, he might go crazy. Let me know if you think I'm nuts. Am I overreacting for Jamar Chase here? I don't know. I'm getting a bad feeling in my stomach right now about him. And so I'm bumping him down. We alluded to Byron Pringle, who I already gave a little bit of a bump up, but we're gaining some insight into what's happening here with the Chiefs. A little bit, I guess. He was the best, Brian Pringle, so let's find him. Where is he? He was the best receiver in the second preseason game. So, yeah, I already bumped him up 6 spots to kind of reward him for that. 4 catches on 5 targets, 63 yards. But then at the same time, McCole Hardman, when its starters were in, they didn't have Tyreek Hill here. He had a much increased role. Played every formation, including 2 wides, over Byron Pringle. That was kind of the big thing here. Every snap in 11 personnel. He was in. He's clearly ahead of Pringle right now on the depth chart. Thing is Pringle's just outperforming him. Hardman's not really looking that good. So you want to think it's like a win for Hardman that he's in all these formations, but would he been if Tyreek wasn't there? Probably not. So I don't feel good about him. Hardman's kind of looking like fake fool's gold. I want to keep our man Nate Taylor at the back of my mind, forefront of my mind. This guy's going to blow up, be all in on him. Trust me. But I'm starting to lose faith. Start lose that trust myself. Now, Rondale Moore. Extensive usage yet again. It's likely a part of them just trying to figure out what they have in their rookie, right? The first game, they didn't have their top 2 receivers, though. Both A.J. Green and Hopkins sat out. Now, Hopkins didn't play this one, the most important guy here. A.J. Green did, though. And even though he was in, Moore lined up right in the slot, 3 receiver sets with the starting lineup with Kyler Murray in there. And guess what? Sees 5 targets, catches 3 of them. Only 15 receiving yards. 1.8 average depth of target. They're just scheming it to him at the line. Not using him very creatively, but that's all we need with Rondale. He's so explosive with the ball in his hands. So I'll bump him up just a spot. I'm not going to go crazy here. He also saw a carry for 9 yards. I mean, that's now 10 designed plays for this guy across about a quarter of preseason action. Missing some big players, yes, but very, very encouraging to see him get used so much, unlike Andy Isabella. It's clear that he is going to have a role, Rondale Moore, in what looked previously to be a pretty gross, crowded situation. Loving me, little Rondale. I think he can get that bump into this tier with these really high upside guys I love as backup wide receivers. Somebody I really love, though. Loved him all along, but I'm just going to continue to bump him up the more and more he thrives. That's Jacoby Myers. We knew he was going to lead this team in receiving. We've talked about it this whole time. Every single report from Jeff Howe and The Athletic, the most consistent receiver in camp. From Tom Curran, he put his cash on Myers being the most reliable and consistent. From Andrew Callahan saying Myers is the number one receiver in camp. Like, everybody's been saying it, and then we see it. 3 targets, 3 receptions, 56 yards, and a TD. 3 of those catches going for first downs or a score. I mean, the guy is their chain mover. The Pats have been horrendous at drafting wide receivers unless they're converted quarterbacks turn into slot receivers in the 7th round. That's their sweet spot, Bill. Don't go away from it. Jacoby Myers is looking like he is that next great one. And I'm going to gladly bump him up. I'm going to keep bumping him up. Now, I like Terrace Marshall. Again, 50 yards, so I'm going to bump him up. I didn't have a band on him, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of Myers. I think even over Ruggs at this point. He's going to be this target hog here. I really, truly believe that. I'm all in on the guy. Absolutely all in. On some positive note, too, in the injury front, Rashad Bateman's already back and running routes. He still has like a 6 to 8 week timeline. Bless you. So I did bump him up already to account for that. Like, I bumped him ahead of some of these other rookies. But, yeah, it's just promising note that I wanted to make sure to pass along to you guys. And a less promising note, N'Keal Harry, who had apparently showed really well in camp, is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks after falling hard on his shoulder. So unlikely to be ready for the start of the season. Potentially will miss the first month. Maybe they get stashed on the IR for the first few weeks. He's been requesting a trade, and now this isn't going to help that at all. The gift that just keeps giving to us Patriots fan, Mr. N'Keal Harry. Thanks, bud. It's been awesome. What a run. What a wild ride. Alrighty, guys, that's all I got for the wide receiver position. Let's now wrap things up with a couple quick tight end notes that you need to get to, and then I will get to any of the questions. It doesn't look like we have a ton in the mailbag, so again, whatever you have, whatever you'd like me to answer, let me know, and I would be happy to get to your questions. But let's cover these last few notes. First being Tyler Kroft. 2 touchdowns, 36 yards. Some big red zone upside for the guy, maybe. This kind of all ships rise with Zach Wilson rising. Tyler Kroft, the tight end 1. All the reports where he's running ahead of Herndon, we kind of already knew that. But then to see him, thrive with his boy, Zach Wilson, I got to get him in these rankings now. Kroft. I think that Zach Wilson, Tyler Kroft stack, the end of best ball, could end up being a sneaky little play in those last few rounds, a way to maximize those picks. I would put him ahead of Parham because this guy's actually starting. Ahead of Adam freaking Troutman, that loser. Like, give me Tyler Kroft. I love him as a last round tight end stab. But I also do really like Pat Freiermuth. Local product, Newburyport guy. 19 yards, 2 touchdowns. After a brutal Ebron drop as well. I'm going to be dropping Ebron a little bit in these rankings while I bump up Freiermuth. Athletic, big body, second best tight end in this class. Only because Kyle Pitts is such a damn freak. A lot to like about Mr. Freiermuth over there. Again, wanted to point out that he caught 2 touchdowns. Now, Logan Thomas, you guys already know my love for Logan Thomas if you've been watching this, but he's played 37 snaps with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and on all of them, just like last year, 98% led the league in tight end snap percentage. 13 snaps in the slot, 3 out wide, moving all over, a little more creative usage here this year. 22 routes run on his 22 dropbacks, never staying in to pass protect. Love to see that for your tight end. And 3 targets on those 21 dropbacks. So a nice 14% rate. Like, all solid numbers that tell me last year wasn't a fluke, that he deserves this tier by himself and could even threaten for this tier. I mean, he was the tight end 4 last year after all. And we're seeing that all continue. And last but not least, Mr. Dallas Goedert remains trapped in a timeshare. 66% of the snaps compared to 50% last week, but still gross. Getting taken off for Richard Rodgers and Zach Ertz in 11 personnel. If he's not on the field, he can't make a big difference. And so I just don't want anything to do with Goddard. He kind of falls out of this tier of quality tight end ones outside my top 12 into this kind of space because he is so good as a player. Like he'll have his big weeks. He belongs in the high upside tight end twos, but until Ertz or Rodgers, if none of them are gone, I can't trust this guy. So that wraps up the tight ends. And folks, that wraps up what I got for you in terms of rises and falls. Not quite the same amount of action and storylines as last week, but that gives us more time for you guys. So let's see what we got for a question. What's up, Dylan? Ready for Arizona to win the Super Bowl? Absolutely not, Dylan. That's a horrendous prediction. What do you think happens with the Patriots since Cam? I think I talked about that, Tunes. It's hard to guess. So he doesn't have it, but he's going to be out for 5 days. That's 5 more days for Mac Jones to continue separating. I think Belichick, these are the types of things that piss Belichick off, this type of negligence. So it doesn't help. Absolutely doesn't help. Can Ben Sling when it comes to the playoffs? Maybe not. I mean, he's talked about how he feels like he's back to his old self. The surgery took a couple of years for him to recover, and now it's really good, and it looked like it. I have no idea if that means it could last the entire year like that, Tunes. I don't really care, though, because I'll take Big Ben as a last-round pick to pair with Trey Lance, and I can let Big Ben kind of rope it. I just think he is so undervalued right now. The kind of the definition of unsexy upside, right? If this arm is back, this team led the NFL in pass attempts last year. Look at the weapons. The Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and then Najee coming out of the backfield. This offense could be deadly. Nobody should be surprised if Big Ben has a top 10 season this year, but he gets drafted at 25 or below. I'll sign myself up. Charlie, what's up, brother? Great to see you. Good to see you, Whit. Wolf, Mitch, awesome to see you again. Always love that you come to all these. I appreciate it. Should I trade Kyler, Swift, and Etienne for Brady and Zeke and Fuller in PPR? I'm guessing this is it's really coming down to do you want Zeke that bad, right? Because I don't really care for Fuller. Brady's obviously a downgrade to Kyler, but Zeke's a huge upgrade to Swift. I typically side on pull the trigger and get the stud in these types of deals, and I think I do here. Obviously, all trades depend on the rest of your makeup, but I would pull this trigger. I think the Kyler, Brady, little bit of a downgrade, but nothing too crazy. Fuller versus Etienne, of course, Etienne's a much better pick, but he's no guarantee to just be anything that useful in year one, especially in a 3-headed nightmare if last week serves. We'll see tonight if that continues. I would pull that trigger, Dominic. You remind me of Sean McVay. I'll take that. He's a pretty good-looking dude, very smart guy as well. You're getting in my good graces, Dominic. Continue to ask questions now. I'll answer everything you have. Where do you have Corey Davis, Mitchell? If you saw, I bumped him up to wide receiver 36. He was all the way down at 50. I'm really, really liking this guy. I'm going to go from lower on the consensus to much higher than the consensus in just a matter of weeks. I really like that. May just be from Charlie. Maybe it's my ignorance as someone who doesn't follow Cincy much. But why such a split in your rankings between Higgins, Chase, assuming he remember how to catch, which he will, and Boyd? I have a hard time. I don't watch a ton either. That's just my confidence level in these three. I have a very strong confidence in Higgins continuing to be a red zone beast, continuing to be a great deep threat, and potentially taking his game to another level after the catch. Chase, I need him to learn how to catch before I can really trust him. I still would like him. I had those two, Charlie, 1 and 2, 20 and 21. But I'm bumping down Chase. And you know what? That probably means I should bump up Boyd a little bit if I'm bumping down Chase, because Burrow's going to need someone to throw to that he trusts, and he trusts Boyd. So maybe Boyd's a little bit too low here at this spot. But it's one of those things where it's a huge aerial pie. He was on pace to shatter the record for pass attempts by a rookie, Joe Burrow, last year. Assuming his knee's healthy and they're willing to let it sling. I just have a hard time figuring out how it's going to be distributed. My bet is clearly on Higgins. I love Higgins. Chase as a talent has probably more than anybody there, but mentality is just not there right now. Boyd does probably belong a little bit higher, though. But also Corey Davis belongs a little bit higher. Yeah, there's your Corey Davis question, Mitchell James. Wolf, my guy, Omar Foster, keeper question. Full PPR. Keep Diggs in the 6th or Gibson in the 9th. Help, people. Ooh, Omar, I don't know if you can go wrong with this. Man, your team must have killed it, by the way, last year. I'm leaning Gibson for the value, but Diggs is so much more guaranteed for a 6-rounder. But I love Gibson this year. I would go for that. I'd go Gibson, but damn, that sucks. You can't keep them both. 2 of the best picks you could have made last year. 909 Orbits. I'm hyped for the season too, brother. Great to see you. I'm happy you're back. Alrighty, guys. Well, that will wrap up this big board update. I'm going to go kind of sift through the overall picture of things and publish this, which you can find at rotostreetjournal.com. Of course, if you prefer podcasts, you can find the Fantasy Fullback Dive wherever you listen at iTunes, Podbean, wherever, Spotify. We're there wherever you listen. We'll pave your path to 2021 titles. Me personally, at RotoStreetWolf on Twitter. Reviews, subscriptions, all that good stuff. The thumbs up button. Simple, easy, free ways to help support your boy. If you like what we're doing, if you appreciate the content, it would mean the world to consider doing those 3 things. Subscribe across where you can to keep getting our numbers better. Like things so they get out to more people. And review things on the iTunes so that also gets out to more people. If you're willing to help us out, it would mean the world. I'll be dropping our projections again, 1:30 show tomorrow. Coming out soon, my investing guide as well. You want to make sure to check that out. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Really appreciate all the support, Wolfpack. Just remember, in a world full of fantasy sheep, be the wolf. Later, guys.